Okay, so picture this, an industry that pulls in more cash than Vegas and Macau put together, but it's in a country where gambling is totally illegal. How does that work? Well, today we're going to unravel the massive $200 billion paradox that is Japan's favorite game, Pachinko. And believe me, it's a wild story of clever legal dodges, a hidden history, and just insane economic power.
So let's just dive right into the central mystery, shall we? You've got Japan, a country with some of the strictest anti-gambling laws you can find. I mean, seriously strict. And yet, you walk down the street, and there they are. Thousands of these super loud, flashy, basically mini casinos on just about every corner. So the big question is, how is any of this legal?
All right. To even begin to solve this puzzle, we've got to get our heads around the game itself. I mean, what is this thing? What is this machine that just seems to operate in its own little universe, totally outside the law?
Okay, so at its core, Pachinko is basically a mechanical game. The best way to picture it? Think of a vertical pinball machine, but on a serious dose of steroids. You use this little knob to shoot these tiny steel balls up into the machine, and your whole goal is to get them to fall into these special winning pockets. And if you do, you don't get a high score. Oh no, you get a massive cascade, a literal flood of even more of these steel balls. And the scale here is, well, it's just mind-blowing. We're talking about more than 10,000 of these parlors dotted all across Japan. But here's the kicker, the part that really puts it into perspective. The pachinko industry makes more money than Las Vegas and Macau combined. Yeah, you heard that right. It's not just big, it's an absolute economic giant. So, the $200 billion question is, how do they all stay open? How does this even work? Well, the secret isn't buried in some super complicated legal document. Nope, it all comes down to a brilliantly simple, kinda genius, three-step loophole.
Okay, check this out. The entire system, this whole massive industry, hinges on one key rule. Pachinko parlors are not allowed to give out cash directly. See, under Japanese law, for something to be gambling, you have to bet money to win, well, money. A direct cash prize. So by making absolutely sure that cash never touches a player's hands inside the parlor, the industry gets to say, hey, we're not gambling. We're just, amused.
And here's the three-step dance that makes it all legal. Step 1, you play, you win, and you get a huge bucket of steel balls. Awesome. Step 2, you haul those balls over to a counter right there in the parlor. But you don't get cash. Instead, they give you these special sealed prize tokens. Now for the final, most important step. Step 3, you walk out of the parlor with your tokens, go to a totally separate little shop which, just happens to be right next door or around the corner, and that's where you swap them for cold, hard cash. And let's be real here for a second. Everybody knows what's going on. The police know, the government knows, the players obviously know. They all know that little exchange shop is tied to the parlor. But because, on paper, they are two separate businesses, well, that's enough. That's the legal fiction. It creates just enough space to keep it all above board. It's a system that everyone just kind of tacitly agrees to, because at this point, it's just too big to fail.
So you might be wondering, how did a system this weird get so baked into Japanese culture? Well, to understand that, we have to rewind the clock and look at the country's post-war history.
Yeah, Pachinko's journey is pretty wild. Believe it or not, it started out as a simple kid's toy right after World War II. But then, in the 50s, when Japan was really struggling economically, it transformed into this cheap, accessible entertainment for adults. And here's a really important piece of the story. It became a lifeline industry for Zainichi Koreans who faced a lot of discrimination and couldn't get jobs in other fields. Now, it's true, it did have some ties to organized crime, like the Yakuza, but the government really cracked down in the 90s and cleaned things up a lot.
But look, history is only part of the equation. If you want to know the #1 reason Pachinko is still here and so powerful today, it boils down to one simple thing. Money. Just an unbelievable amount of economic power.
I mean, the numbers we're talking about are hard to even wrap your head around. Just in 2018, the industry generated around $200 billion. That's billion with a B. It's not a typo. 200 billion. It's just staggering.
And to really grasp what a number that big means for an entire country, get this. That revenue makes up an estimated 4% of Japan's entire GDP. 4%. An industry that big isn't just a game anymore. It's a pillar of the national economy.
Right, and when you're talking about that kind of money, it buys you a lot of influence, a lot of protection. The industry is a huge source of tax revenue for the government, not to mention a major employer all over the country. I mean, could you imagine shutting it down?
You'd have mass unemployment, a massive shock to the economy, and what's really fascinating is that the whole thing is overseen by the National Police Agency. That creates a very unique and very powerful bond, to say the least.
Okay, but for all of this economic muscle, there's a flip side, a darker side. Because Pachinko is this weird paradox. It's a beloved national pastime, but it's also at the root of some really serious social problems.
You see, on the one hand, for millions of people, it really is just a way to unwind. It's a casual, social thing, a loud, bright place to blow off some steam after a tough day. But on the other hand, it's a huge driver of gambling addiction. It leads to financial ruin and tears families apart. It's gotten so serious that the government has started to slowly bring in tighter rules, trying to find that tricky balance between curbing the worst of it without, killing the golden goose.
So, if we zoom out and look at the big picture, there really isn't just one simple reason why Pachinko is legal. It's this perfect storm, a complex mix of three key things: a super clever legal workaround that everyone just kind of plays along with, deep historical and cultural roots, and, of course, that raw economic power that basically makes it too big to fail.
And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. Is Pachinko a truly unique, kind of harmless part of Japanese culture, or is it just a massive gambling empire hiding in plain sight? What do you think? The truth probably depends a lot on who you ask. Thanks for diving into this one with us.